everyone, it's Katie back with another episode of my vlog. And man, it is a stressful time out there. How are you guys doing? Seems like this week is just like max stress out for a lot of people around the election, on the heels of already having been totally mega stressed out for 7.5, 8 months now, with the COVID situation and everything else that's been going on. This has just been one hell of a year, and this week is like one hell of a week in one hell of a year. And you know, if you're really lucky like me, you're also in the stroke dimension. So, how are you guys doing? I hope everyone's keeping okay, keeping relatively calm with everything. And actually, what I want to talk about today is not the stressors of life and the situation with the election or COVID or any of that stuff. But I actually want to talk about tools for maintaining a calm demeanor when everything around you is just going completely crazy and out of your control and stressing you out or making you have a lot of anxiety or panic attacks or, you know, other stuff like that, which happens when you are living in a super stressful situation. And I want to share with you guys my number one tool for keeping myself calm, keeping myself on an even keel, no matter what the universe is throwing at me. And that is controlled breathing techniques, which I know it sounds a little kind of like hippy dippy woo woo, but they really, really work. And there's some real science behind them. So I want to share with you guys a few different things that I've learned, both through my voyage in the stroke dimension and with my yoga practice and with running and a whole bunch of other places, kind of all coming together in this one sort of really obvious thing. I mean, we're all breathing all the time without even thinking about it. But if you pay attention to your breath and if you use some of these controlled breathing techniques that I'm going to show you, you actually can really change your mindset and your stress level and your anxiety level actually quite easily by adopting some of these. So without further ado, the first thing I want to talk about was actually some info that I got from a neuropsychologist when Sean was at rehab right before he came home. Remember, after the stroke, he spent 3 months in the hospital before he came home. And the last 3 weeks of that was a very intense rehab situation where the entire goal was getting him ready to go home. And right before we left, I had a meeting without Sean. Actually, I sat down with a neuropsychologist, and she wanted to give me some tools that I could use with Sean when something might make him feel panicky or feel anxious or, just stop him from being able to sort of calm down and smoothly function. And so she sat me down and gave me this whole talk about breathing and how breathing affects our brain and what actually triggers what there. And she gave me a whole bunch of different examples and funny anecdotes and things. But the meat of what she told me is this. We all know about the fight or flight response, right? When there's something that's like an emergency thing is happening, the lion is chasing you across the savannah, or, if you want to get more imaginative, you're in a horror movie and the killer is coming at you, or whatever the situation is that triggers your brain into that fight or flight, adrenaline panic type of response. What's happening there is carbon dioxide is building up in your lungs, and that's the actual signal to your brain to go into panic mode. And when your brain goes into panic mode, what it does is it increases blood flow to your major muscle groups, your legs, your arms, so that you can run faster or run further or fight harder or just stay alive. But where your body is sending the blood from in order to pump this extra blood to those major muscle groups is it's taking the blood away from your brain and it's taking the blood away from your extremities as well. And so this is why when you're in a panic state, it's very hard to think clearly. And it's also very hard to do fine motor skill type things. So one of the examples that she gave was in a horror movie when someone's trying to get away from the killer, and they're trying to fumble car keys out of a pocket and get it into the ignition and turn the ignition on. It's actually much harder to do when you're in a panicked state because your fingers aren't going to be working the way that you want them to because there's less blood flow going to your fingers. Your brain is also not working the way that you want it to because your brain has drained blood away and sent it to those big muscle groups. And she taught me that the switch, the on-off switch for whether your brain is in panic mode or not, is actually the buildup of carbon dioxide in the lungs. And so when something happens that scares us, we tend to go into a shallow breathing, like, right? And you're not getting all the carbon dioxide out of your lungs when you do that. And that's what triggers the panic in your brain. So in order to turn the switch the other way and make your brain go back to the thinking version of the brain, all you need to do is take a big deep breath in and then exhale fully. Use your diaphragm, use those big muscles under your lungs to really push all of the carbon dioxide out of your lungs, like this. A big full exhale to get everything out of your lungs. She actually explained to me, if you think about it, oxygen is O2 and carbon dioxide is CO2. It's the oxygen with the carbon added on to make the CO2 molecule. So it's heavier than oxygen. So it actually sits at the bottom of your lungs. And when you're doing that breathing, you might be exchanging a little bit of oxygen for carbon dioxide, but most of the CO2 is hanging out in the bottom of your lungs, just kind of building up in there. And once it builds up high enough, again, it hits that panic switch in your brain and basically shuts off your ability to think rationally. So obviously, if you're going through something physical, that's going to manifest physically, but this also happens if you're having anxiety or a panic attack or a big stress out about something. If all of a sudden something stressful happens and you find yourself going, if you take a minute and you take that big breath, you can course correct and you can send your brain back into the calm down, rational thinking part of your brain. Now, it's not going to solve your problem of whatever's happening that's making you feel twitchy like that, but at least you can be more calm while you're responding to that stimulus. So we have used this very, very effectively around here for the last 2 years. Anytime anybody starts to get a little freaked out about something or gets really cranked up into an emotional state, I remind them to do a deep breath. Usually it's not taken well at first, but one of the things we've come up with is an equivalent to just a big exhale is like a big annoyed, angsty teenage sigh. So, if something's bugging you, you can be like, like that. And it does the same effect for your brain as just a regular exhale will do. You don't have to make the big noise, but you can, and it can be helpful. So that's kind of like the science of what's going on with your brain and your breathing and why deep breathing is so effective as a calming technique. But again, please remember the inhale, the full nice inhale, welcoming a bunch of oxygen into your lungs is great. It's very beneficial, but it's much more important to get that full exhale of all of the carbon dioxide out of your lungs and just away from you. And I like to also kind of visualize when I'm doing it, and I visualize maybe my stress or the thing that's bugging me. And when I do the big exhale, I'm blowing that out of my body with the carbon dioxide, right? So it's a little bit woo-woo, but there's a lot of science behind why this works. Another way that you can train kids on how to do this is a thing called cocoa breathing, where you can encourage little kids to imagine they have a cup of hot chocolate in their hands. And first they want to smell the smell of the hot chocolate. And then they have to blow on it to cool it off. So I have the kids do, what I call 3 cocoa breaths, or if you're a little older, 3 teen angst sighs, but really good, really big ones to get all that CO2 out of their system. And it works it's not going to solve all your problems, but it's kind of amazing how well this trick works. So I really encourage you guys to try that trick. The other thing that I've really tuned into over the last, I've gotten really serious about my yoga practice in the last 6 months or so. And of course, yoga is all about breathing and paying attention to how you're breathing and moving with your breath and using your breath to, expand or contract or twist or flow or somehow change the patterns of the way that energy is kind of like flowing through your body. And so utilizing those yogic breathing techniques alongside of this big kind of like my big gun is what I think of it as, that big deep breath, full exhale technique. I've really managed to get a lot of control over what used to be kind of, out of control responses from my brain, being emotional when I didn't want to be, saying things that I didn't mean to say because I was so caught up in the moment and so frustrated or whatever. Taking a beat, taking a breath or two or three is always beneficial. Obviously, unless there's something you have to do right now. But the thing is, we usually don't have things that we have to do, oh my God, right now. That example I gave way back at the beginning of, you're being chased by a lion or a zombie or a slasher killer or whatever. Yeah, you need to act right now to do something. But even in that moment, taking the deep breath is going to help you because it's going to help you return to the logical part of your brain instead of the panicked, freaking out, I don't know what to do part of your brain. Again, yogic breathing techniques, and there's a whole bunch of them, right? There's a lot of it is a long, deep, slow breath and moving slowly with your breath. But sometimes Adrienne Mishler, that's who I take yoga instruction from, Yoga with Adrienne on YouTube. A lot of times she will add in something like, let's do some short, sharp breaths right now and see how we feel after we do that. So she'll say, do a big inhale and then really quick exhales like that, right? And if you practice that and notice how it makes you feel, you can then utilize that tool when you're not doing yoga, right? One of the things Adrienne likes to say a lot is we practice this on the mat so that when we walk off the mat, we can use these tools in our daily life. And I've really found them to be super beneficial just for changing up, again, the way I'm feeling, the way I'm thinking, the way I'm flowing through my life. Being aware of breath and of how it affects the body and the mind is super important. Another big one for me is obviously I've taken up running in the last 5 months, and it's a massive cardiovascular workout. So there's a large amount of breathing that goes on with running. And as I've taken my journey over learning about running in the last 5 months, I've learned a lot about using different breathing techniques while I'm running to change how I feel or how much better I can perform, how much faster I can go, how much more energy I can get. Doing things like if I start to feel tired while I'm running, I'll do 3 breaths where I'm only inhaling through my nose instead of keeping my mouth open the whole time. And it really controls the breath and changes the way that I'm breathing. Or I will try to intentionally make my inhales longer than my exhales, or the other way around, because it can really change up the energy in your body. And again, the way your brain is processing things also. So that's kind of it. There's not like a big conclusion here, but I just really, really wanted to share this tool or these tools with you guys because it's really, really important. Again, breathing is something we're all doing all the time without even thinking about it. But if you put in a little bit of thought to it, a little bit of attention to it, and a little bit of practice, because again, it is practice. You can't just say to yourself, oh, I'm going to adopt this new breathing technique when something bad is happening. I guarantee you when the bad thing happens, you're not going to think of the breathing technique if you haven't been practicing it. So do a little practice, give yourself that foundation, try it out, see how it makes you feel. Try it when you're not panicking. That's the important part, and learn it and really practice it. And then when something does happen, it will be almost an automatic response for you to just go into your breathing technique to correct whatever is going wrong. And again, the breathing technique isn't going to solve your problems, but so often when something bad is happening or something challenging is happening, our own response to the challenge can make the challenge seem even worse than it is. And if we can dial ourselves back and get a little bit calm and get a little bit, centered and grounded, to use some more yoga terms, then we can do so much more. We can be that much more effective. We can operate better, and just feel better, even in a shitty situation. And no one wants to be in a shitty situation, but I would much rather face a shitty situation feeling a little bit better than face a shitty situation feeling like garbage, right? And I think you guys would too. So that's it. It's really pretty simple. But again, you do need to put in a little bit of time practicing this so that this tool can serve you when you need it. The other place that I use it a lot is I have, what I like to call a monkey brain that just kind of goes and says, here's the thing to be worried about right now. And I've actually gotten really good at conquering my own monkey brain and going, no, you know what? I don't need to worry about that right now. I do my breathing techniques. I get myself calmed down. I realize that's not something that I need to worry about right now. There's no actual problem happening. And then I'm able to move through my day with more grace, more patience, a better attitude to display to my kids. And everything just is a little bit easier. Maybe not easier, but flows better so that life is not, at peak challenge level. We can bring it down to here by utilizing these techniques. So I just wanted to share that with you guys because I feel like this is something that is totally available to everyone and not that obvious, but pretty easy to implement if you choose to do so. There's tons of resources out there on the internet. If you Google it, if you look on YouTube, there are so many videos about how to do all different kinds of controlled breathing techniques. They have all these different names for them. If you really want to get into it, there's a huge rabbit hole you can go down. But hopefully I've given somebody out there some kind of a tool that they can use to make their life a little bit easier, flow a little bit better, and just help you to deal, because we all have a bunch of shit to deal with. And if we can deal a little bit better, we can be a little bit better and be a little bit nicer to each other. And, maybe things come out a little bit better. So that's my big message for today. I hope you guys are all staying well and taking care out there and, turning off your social media or your TV or whatever and just chill out. Just do your own thing. Don't be checking election returns every hour or whatever. Just, someone will tell you when they've figured out who the president is. Let's just, take a deep breath and relax and not try to get too far up in our own monkey brains about stuff and just chill out a little bit. All right, you guys, thanks so much for watching. I'll be back in a couple of days with the Cinema Club's Sunday Roundup. Until then, take care.